Welcome to the Scoop. World Order. Is Ohio State closing in on the greatest class in college football history? I think we got a shot. A bunch of guys got big bumps today, up to 5 stars. Some guys went from unranked to top 140 since they've committed to Ohio State. So this class is going to surge like a shooting star. We had David Sanders and a couple other players. I think we're the best class in college football history. So we're going to break that down, take your questions. As always, we appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for being a part of the show each and every night. It's always a blast to kick it with you guys. We appreciate you guys. It's going to be a huge show because you guys make it one. So thank you for all that you guys do. Happy birthday to Urban Meyer. It's his 60th birthday. One of the great figures in Ohio State football history and a monster in the history of college football. Happy birthday to you, sir. He's rocking his Buckeye Scoop stuff down in sunny Florida along with Shells. So I hope you guys have a great night. As always, we appreciate you guys. If you enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe. Also click that little alert bell. Again, we have a huge surge on our Apple Podcasts and our Spotify, our just our pure audio medium. If you guys could subscribe to those, leave us a 5-star review. Takes literally maybe 20 seconds to do. It's free. It's a huge help for us to help us with the algorithm across all platforms. So we appreciate you guys doing that for us and helping us out. Again, this is going to be a huge show because you guys make it one. Shout out where you guys are watching from. Shout out who you guys are watching with. We're going to get right into it right away with our resident 5-star NIL baby, Nevadabuck. Nevada, I know that we wax poetic about this class about once a week or once a day, it seems like, about how it's all come together. Taven St. Clair is rated as a top 10-ish type player, potentially could be the best player in the class. David Sanders is lurking. You already have a 5-star tackle committed. I don't know what's left to be said about this class. 5 defensive linemen committed, 6 DBs. Just got the number 1 linebacker. Really, a lot of depth, a lot of width in this class. What are your thoughts so far with the stretch run of really August until signing day in December upcoming?
Well, I think, look, any discussion you have about Ohio State right now has got to be taken in the context of what's going on in the big, larger world of college football. And the story of college football right now has been Oregon and the NIL dollars. And, you've talked many times about how you had, prophesized of Phil Knight coming in and throwing NIL money around and doing it. And that clearly is happening right now. But the good news for Ohio State is managing to navigate this NIL landscape by trying to find kids who NIL is not the sole determinator of where they end up. And I think for them, that's how they're trying to maintain the sanity of their room. That's how they're trying to maintain, keep the locker room, difficulties and challenges that come with paying these kids big money before they ever set foot on a college football field, keeping that stuff in check and frankly, managing their culture and keeping their class together. And I think they've done an exceptional job in terms of doing it. I think as a result, they're getting a different caliber of kid. I think the NIL first kids just have a completely different mindset looking at their approach to college football. And I think for Ohio State, I know people don't want to hear it, but I think it's a blessing in disguise when you kind of avoid some of those issues. And I think Ohio State's done a terrific job in terms of doing it. And like for David Sanders is not going to go to the highest bidder. He's going to go to the place that he certainly NIL has got to be sufficient to kind of make it go. And Ohio State's like, look, we're not going to be beat on this, but they're not setting the market. They're not just throwing out silly money and trying to buy the player that way. And I think that they've maintained that discipline with just about everybody. And I really think that that's going to pay dividends down the road. I look at what's going on with Oregon right now, and Oregon's on this stretch for 5 crystal balls, 7. I don't even know. I can't even keep track of the crystal ball. First of all, because the crystal balls change every 15 minutes, I can't keep track of that. But you got to remember when you're grabbing these kids and you're grabbing the Decorian Moores and stuff like that. Well, then what happens? What's the law of unintended consequences when you do that? Well, now I'm hearing that Dallas Wilson is decommitting from them. He's like their highest ranked. I think he's the 3rd ranked wide receiver in the country, composite 5-star. And now he's going to go to Miami, apparently. So when if you live by the NIL you can die by the NIL. And I think that's what we saw with Texas A&M a few years ago. I really think that's what we're going to see with Oregon. I think it's great that Oregon's, in the Big Ten, that, Lanning seems like a good enough guy, that they're, super pumping this money in terms of doing it. But I really think it's going to backfire. I really think that going with kids where NIL sufficient, but that their focus is on development and getting to the NFL, and NFL, prosperity is kind of the long-term, slow and steady type of path. I really think that's going to serve Ohio State well. And I think these other schools that are going for the short-term kind of sugar rush, as it were, are, it may look good, on paper, it may look good for a little bit of time, but I really believe that long-term, that's a losing strategy. And the way that roster construction, the way that Ohio State's doing it, the way Ohio State's doing it with this class, I really believe is the way to go.
And like when we talk through this and try to make sense of it, and I've been in a locker room, I've been a coach in a locker room, I've seen I love NIL. There's somebody that loves NIL more than I do. I think that it's good that these kids get paid. I'm glad that they're not, working like indentured servants anymore and living off scraps. But, guys survived. Like I did it. I was fine. Life's amazing for me. And it kind of is what it is. But now, there's teams like Oregon that are working to buy a championship, which again, great. I mean, it's a good thought, but it's a lot like, you look throughout sports, especially teams that don't have a salary cap, like in Major League Baseball. And you look at the Yankees have always been a crazy spender. They're in a tailspin right now. Excuse me. And you look at how often teams that have the highest cap number, maybe in the NFL, maybe across, the NFL is a hard cap, so it's a little different. But there's been a lot of times where teams have spent exorbitant amounts of money to try to win a title, and it rarely comes to fruition because there's always egos. Now, granted, when you get to the professional levels, the NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, like everybody's eating, so it's not like college. But you go to Oregon and DeCorian Moore gets a couple $1 million to be their bonus baby receiver. If he shows up and sucks an egg, then that ain't gonna go over too hot in the wide receiver room where they've already paid Stewart, the kid that was actually in the heralded record A&M class, to go there. So I don't know. I think it puts a lot of pressure on these kids when they show up and they're the bonus babies, and they better be ready to ball. And I'm telling you, college football is a very, very hard game. It's a game where there's not many 18-year-olds that can just show up and dominate from day one. And when you're paying these kids the way that they're getting paid, like that's what's going to get expected. Like when Texas A&M landed that class, 3 years ago or whatever it was, and they had the best defensive line group ever. Shamar Stewart, Walter Nolan, it goes on and on and on. Like, did anybody ever hear about those guys like dominating, taking over, being some force of nature, in the pass rush and in the running game? Like, I didn't. Because again, there's a lot of pressure on those guys when they're all 5-stars to show up and ball, and none of them really did. Walter Nolan ended up transferring out to Ole Miss, and that's the other thing that could happen is like, you might sign these kids, and if it goes sideways after 2 years, then they jump to Ole Miss. So you spend a lot of money up front to get kids that, if the fan base gets disenfranchised, if the kids aren't spoon fed, it could go sideways. Because here's the inside scoop. When you talk about DeCorian Moore, you talk about some of these receivers that aren't coming to Ohio State. They look at that room right now and they see J.J. Smith in there, and J.J. plays. They all want to play the X. They want to be the main dude, and that's what J.J. is going to be this year. That's what he's going to be for the next 3 years for Ohio State. None of those guys want to go head up versus J.J. because it's like the big dragon on Game of Thrones that eats all the other dragons and kills everybody and kills all the people and burns down the castles. That's what J.J. is. He's the big giant. He's Vagar, the big giant dragon that killed the dragons this past week. That's what he is. So they don't want any of the smoke with J.J. Smith. So again, J.J. is the best money we've ever spent in the history of Ohio State. I mean, because again, you guys, anyone that's like, I hate NIL, I want that old thing back. Like, dude, when you're playing college football and you see that our top two guys are Caleb Downs and Quinshon Judkins, they're the top 2 rated guys in Ohio State, 2 NIL babies for Ohio State, 2 guys that want to be a part of the culture. And when you guys watch J.J. Smith this year, you'll be like, yeah, I'm really glad that we were able to get that kid. So I I don't know. I like what Ohio State's doing. I think that the culture and the development selling is the way to go. And one of my favorite dads in the world is Riley Pettijohn's dad, because there were some really moronic people after Riley Pettijohn committed that were saying, don't rule out Oregon. Don't, because they're buying players and this won't be over because Oregon might buy and up the offer for Riley Pettijohn. And Riley Pettijohn's dad basically said, look, you're not buying my son. We're going somewhere where he's going to get developed, where he can play. Like, my son's not for sale, because some of these kids are for sale, and then some of them aren't. Some of them, like, my kid, wherever he goes, and he's for me to say this now, but like, he ain't going to the highest bidder. He's going to the place that he wants to go to, and he's not going to buy him for an extra couple $100,000, because that's not going to matter in my kid's decision making when he goes to play whatever sport, wherever it is. Because again, Riley Pettijohn's got a real dude for a dad, and he's like, look, my kid's going where he's going to get developed by James Laurinaitis. He's going to have a huge potential future in the National Football League if he puts in the work over the next 3 years. And that's what a lot of these guys are realizing at Ohio State. Is like, Marvin Harrison could have shopped around for an NIL deal and made another $1 million or $500,000 or whatever. But, Marvin was not starving. He wasn't starving Marvin like in South Park. But, after he put in work for 3 years, he just signed for $35 million plus probably another 7 to 10 million in endorsements from, he's the face of New Balance, which actually has football cleats now. He's got endorsements from about 1 million other brands. So he put in the work for 3 years. He didn't chase fast money. And he did it the way that every kid in the universe should do it. Because some of these kids, they're going to like the Miami Hurricanes. They're going to random Texas A&M, who fired their entire coaching staff, and they're not getting developed. And then they're going to look up in 3 or 4 years and say, man, I'm sure glad I got that fast money, because that's the last big check I'm ever going to see playing football. So that's just my opinion. I love Ohio State's positioning. And don't get it twisted. Like, our NIL, we can match any offer that we want to match. But we're not going to match something for a guy who's, we're not going to give a guy JJ money who isn't JJ. And that's the thing where, like, don't get it twisted. Like, we could compete with Oregon in NIL. Now, but we're not going to spend, like a sailor on shore leave just because we feel like it. Because I just don't think that's the best course of action. If I'm sitting in that locker room and I'm some returning all Big Ten, all American type guy, and this kid walks in and they just gave him $1 million or $800,000 or whatever, and he shows up and he sucks. I mean, I would never let the personnel guy and the NIL people be like, you guys gave all that money to that guy and he sucks. He's terrible. He's trash. I'd be like, let me evaluate these guys and I'll dole the money out, instead of some of you guys that get fooled by these stupid star rankings and these really terrible evaluators. Nevada, do you have anything to add? We're starting to get a few super chats in. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think I really think it's a delicate dance, and I think for Ohio State's got to thread the needle here in terms of doing this, because it's tempting to want to kind of go out and break the bank and go to some of your big donors and try to buy a kid that you think can help put you over the top, but it will always impact somebody else on the team. It will impact a returning starter. It will impact a guy that signed a couple of years ago and that just hasn't had his chance to shine yet, or somebody that's signing in this class but is already committed earlier. And when you do that, that stuff gets out. There's no secrets in college. In business, there's no secrets with salaries. And sports, there's no secrets. And in college football, there's no secrets for sure about what these kids are getting. So you better have some sort of rationale behind it. You better have some sort of financial discipline. You better have a plan in place to try to almost like a salary cap. I mean, you're looking at it's almost exactly like operating within a cap space, but it's your personal cap space where you've got to have the financial discipline to say it, because if you don't, you're going to lose your locker room. And the Texas A&M class is it's just a classic example. I mean, that I believe on paper that's the gold standard in terms of being either the best class or one of the best classes or whatever it was. And it seemed like they were getting every single top player in the country was there. And look, they all flame out. Like, really? Like, all of a sudden, the coaching staff there forgets how to coach, and the guys, every evaluation's wrong. Or maybe just when you get a toxic mix like that, it can't work. And that's what I believe. I've been around sports my whole life. I've been around sports teams. I've seen how sports teams constructed. And if it was just about spending money, then the Yankees would win every World Series. And the Yankees don't win every World Series because that's not necessarily the secret sauce that kind of gets you over the top and gets you to the promised land. And I really believe in college football, you've got some teams that are going to go for the quick money because think about the lifespan of a college coach right now. The college coach isn't coming in and going, man, I'm going to really think long term. I'm going to think 12, 10, 12, 15 years down the road. A college coach, if you're not good the first year, you feel the heat. If you're not good the second year, your name's on the list of people being fired and there's questions. If you're not good the third year, you're gone. It's over. So it's the ultimate short-term type of environment. Nobody's looking down the road. Nobody's trying to prepare for the future or lay the acorns that are someday going to become the mighty oaks. It's about winning quickly, winning now, and keeping your job. And those things are not necessarily consistent with building a great culture. And that's where I think that the tradition of Ohio State, the discipline of Ohio State, and frankly, the discipline of Ryan Day, whether it was forced upon him or whether it's happenstance or whatever, they've done a really good job of navigating this. And look, we'll be the first ones on here to criticize Ohio State when they do stuff that we think isn't super awesome, but I think the way that they've navigated NIL, the way that they've really focused on spending that money on retaining players, key proven transfers, and then selective key recruits. I think that's the way to go. I think some of these other schools are spending money recklessly, and it's gonna hurt them, and it's gonna come back to cost them. And that's why I think this whole Ohio State class is not only going to be highly regarded on paper, but I think it's going to pan out really well because they've done a really good job of kind of vetting out the right types of kids. And I think Ohio State's getting those types of kids.
Nevada, I know you're going to agree with me on this one because we agree on most stuff, not everything, but most stuff. But like, has any team in college football navigated NIL better than Ohio State football?
No, and I don't think it's good. I mean, I think Georgia's done a good job. I think Georgia's done a good job. I think Kirby's done a nice job in terms of doing that. But nobody's done it better than Ohio State. That is for sure. And I think you're starting to see the fruits of that through through the recruiting class, the results on the field, and just kind of the stability you feel within the program right now. Nothing about this feels like get rich quick or some sort of scam or some sort of when a Ponzi scheme. This feels like that they have a plan. They're working the plan. They have a budget. They're staying within the budget. They're trying to recognize the right types of players to kind of fit into this. But I'd say Ohio State and Georgia are two that are doing it right. And then you've got some that are doing it just completely foolishly. And everybody else is just kind of doing it because they have to. I'd hate to be one of those schools, but I think Ohio State's doing it as well or better than anybody. And that's really a tribute to the staff and administration at Ohio State who've really kind of got and the collective who's really got their stuff together.
I agree. I think that when you look at what Ohio State has done, managing NIL, which has been like, I mean, you're driving 1,000 miles an hour basically trying to manage kids and now all of a sudden these kids have agents and you're not just dealing with the parents and the third uncles. You're dealing with like really sharp people now that actually know the game. And again, that's the dangerous thing to me is like, when you start throwing money around and giving offers out to kids and they take them, then all of a sudden, if it's some obscenely high offer, you might be playing, it's like the NFL free agency. When you see teams pay crazy amounts of money for like, not like the top tier talent, not S tier talent, like B tier talent, and when you pay, like a mid-range 4-star receiver, a big number, then all of a sudden these agents all know what these guys are getting. So you can't hide and say, oh no, we didn't do this. And the kids talk too. So again, you don't want to just be the kind of like the fool of the, of college football when you're just doling out cash, and again, I think Ohio State's been excellent about it. I mean, outside of like Victor Cutler and there haven't been many where we've whiffed on, and that wasn't a huge one. And again, you're not going to be 100% on the stuff. And I know that they were desperate to find an interior guy last year, so they took him. But for the most part, I mean, dude, like when we snapped that first ball, and we've got Quinshawn in the backfield, and we've got Will Howard, and we got Will Kazmarek, and we've got McLaughlin, our center, next to Carson Hinsman. I mean, I think that we're going to have a fantastic group. And, then you have Caleb Downs at the back end. I mean, because you're not only just adding guys that are outstanding players, but they're great work ethic guys, great leadership guys. Because that's the best part of getting Caleb Downs. It's not that you're getting the best, defensive player in college football, but he's like one of the best leaders in college football. He's one of the hardest workers in the weight room with Mickey Marotti this summer. I mean, he's a freak. And again, it all comes, back from his dad. His dad's an NFL guy, knows the game, was a grinder, really tough guy in the NFL, played a long time, taught his kid the game. And his kid knows the game. And again, when you get these kids that are on missions, they're not there to mess around. Like he's like JJ. Like JJ's not here to screw around for 3 years. He's here to do his thing, produce, become a mutant, and be potentially the first pick in the draft in 3 years, which I think he could be. So really excited about it. And again, I think that this is going to be an absolutely fantastic. This is going to be an absolutely fantastic run for Ohio State as we go through recruiting. All right, Nevada, we have some super chats. All right, Nevada, Tyler Kirsty, thanks for being on here. Appreciate you, man. Thanks for the 5. Kirk, good evening. Today I was listening to a Tennessee podcast, and they were claiming we're desperate to get David Sanders Jr. Well, doesn't everybody want a 5-star left tackle? I don't know if that's desperate, but I think that, and again, Tennessee hasn't won anything since 98, 99, I think maybe, when they beat Florida State in that national title. So they haven't done anything in 25 years. So I don't know what they're talking about. Now, if they want to talk baseball, then I'm all ears. But if they want to talk football, they can go back to eating mayonnaise sandwiches and living in their trailers. Because again, I'm not trying to hear about Tennessee volunteer football because they haven't been relevant in my lifetime, almost. But I don't think that desperate is the word. I think that we want him more than any remaining recruit, which I think that anyone that's in on him, which is really just us in Tennessee at this point, they're all in the same boat. I mean, dude, we need a left tackle, but every team in the country needs a left tackle. Every team in the country would do moonsaults off the top rope to get David Sanders Jr. at this point. So I don't know what they're talking about, and I'm sure that this podcast isn't very good if that's what their topic is that we're desperate to get David Sanders, because we're desperate, and look at them. But again, that's just my opinion. Nevada, I don't know about this, but this is Kirk. Good evening. Today it was, and again, thank you, Tyler, for the 5. Appreciate you, man. I was listening to a Tennessee podcast, and they were claiming we're desperate to get David Sanders Jr. Like, I don't even really know how to react to that, but maybe you've got more foresight than I do, and you're a little more measured than I am. So maybe you could tell me, how should I react to a Tennessee podcast saying that we are desperate to get David Sanders Jr.?
Well, let me just address this by just saying my personal feelings on this matter. And I have to say it because I just have to say it. I don't care whether we get David Sanders. I don't. I really don't. I've said that many times. I don't care about any individual recruit. Do I think we're getting David Sanders? I do. Will I be excited if we get him? Absolutely. It'll be a great day because everybody else will be so happy. For me, I've just seen guys come and go and flame out, and the low ranked guys turn out awesome, and the high ranked guys sometimes turn out bad. And so you just never know. So I'm excited about everyone. So I will be happy because everybody else will be happy. So I'm not sure if that makes me desperate. I think it's maybe the opposite of desperate, kind of indifferent in terms of this stuff. But I do want people to be happy. And I do think we're going to be happy. And Ohio State believes that they're going to be happy. But I don't think Ohio State's desperate about anybody, about any one recruit. As you said, we're in great. Yeah, they haven't been relevant since T. Martin roamed the sideline there. And even though I do like Rocky Top and I do like Smokey, I think Smokey's kind of cool. And I do think you would kind of look like the big boy if you wore those overalls with the checks on them and stuff like that, Kirk. That's what you would look like. We get that hamburger holding up in one hand, like the big boy combo or something like that. Do they still have big boys in Ohio? Do you have big boys?
I don't know. I think they made a big deal about they shut one down I can't remember where. There's one in like Dayton. I think it looked like it was 100 years old. It hadn't been repainted in about 70 years. But I don't
Come on,
I
you
don't
don't think you
think
can be
so.
you don't think you can be the big boy there with those
Well,
overalls
I
and
don't.
stuff
Oh,
like
I
that?
don't. I know. No. I know I could be the big boy. I don't think that they have those anymore. Oh yeah, I don't. I don't care about that. Of course, I could be the big boy. I could be anything. I'm like Optimus Prime. I could just transform into whatever I want to be. You know,
I
I'm
like
like
big
the
boy.
I'm like the T-1000 in Terminator 2. I can turn into whatever I want. I could be the
No, the
big
big boy,
boy. I could be JJ Smith. I can be whatever I want.
the big boy combo where you got like the sandwich and the fries and you get the hot fudge cake for dessert and stuff like that. I mean, come on, who doesn't like the
I've
big
never
boy
eaten
combo?
it one. I've never eaten it, big boy. I really haven't.
Really?
I swear to God, they're not prevalent here. I mean, I'm gonna look and see if there's a big boy right now, but I really don't think that there is. You know, and any of you
Yeah.
guys that want to chime in on the chat, please.
On the West Coast they were called Bob's Big Boy, but I think in the Midwest they were called like Frisch's or something like that, like Frisch's Big Boy or something, or
I really don't.
Manners Big Boy. I don't know.
Oh, there's one in Grove City. I'll
See,
be, and there's one in
this,
Groveport too.
this is
Okay,
what I'm
so
talking
there's
about.
some like I mean they're literally 45 minutes away from me, so it's like that's a long way to go to eat average food, but you know they're gonna drive past Buffalo Wild Wings and Twin Peaks. I ain't doing that. Those guys believe in us and their sponsors. So
The big boy.
well, I'm glad that you're following my lead, where I don't care about recruits as much as everybody else seems to. Because
No,
I've lived it.
I just, no, I look, I care about recruiting. I care about big picture recruiting. I think if you do not recruit at a high level on the big picture, that it affects you. That I think it's exceedingly difficult to win without big picture recruiting. Now you go to little picture recruiting, like individual recruits, and I just don't get that hung up on it because I'm about the big picture. If you've got 26 great kids, if you missed on the 27th, do you line up on the ledge and throw yourself off?
No.
Not me. But if you only have 7 good recruits and you miss on the 8th one, that's ledge time. But we're not at ledge time. That's just my personal opinion.
Well, I mean, like if you okay, so let's look at our offense and think about all of the guys that have been the people that people wanted to like go give themselves the gas chamber because we missed on whatever Samson Okunloa, Kenyatta Goodwin, the litany of these tackles that haven't done or didn't do anything or somehow we've survived without. Like you look at our offense, our starting left tackle we got from San Diego State. He's a really good player. Really good player. I mean, he's a guy that he'll be a mid-round draft pick just off of athleticism. If he does anything at all this year, I think he'll be, he could be, I don't want to say a first-round pick. I mean, he'd have to take a pretty big jump to be a first-rounder. I mean, you got to be, but he's got the athleticism of a first-round pick all day, every day. And when he tests at the combine, like, look out. I mean, I'm telling you, some of these line coaches have carte blanche in terms of evaluating and helping stack the boards at their teams. Like if Bill Callahan loves that guy, then that's who they're getting. Because Bill Callahan, when the Titans were drafting this year, like he was all about J.C. Latham, who they took, I think at like 6 overall or whatever it was, and that was the guy he wanted. So if a guy like Bill Callahan, who's got clout, really likes this kid because he's just an elite athlete, then he could fly up the boards. Because I've seen guys that are not as talented as him go first round. But just my opinion, and I've watched enough film to make my eyeballs bleed of Ohio State football, and the kid is really good. He's got a lot of upside, and there's so many little nuanced things that he could just clean up and do better that would make him a million times more efficient. That I'm excited to see if he can get some of that stuff down this year. But yeah, like you look at our offense, and people they want to go off the ledge because we don't get a running back or a quarterback or we don't get a lineman or whatever. And you look at our offense, I mean, like welcome to college football. We have 2 transfer portal guys starting on our O-line. We have our top running back is a transfer portal guy. Our quarterback is a transfer portal guy. I mean, our potential, not starting tight end, but in the mixed tight end, Kazmarek is a portal guy. I mean, the only place we haven't hit the portal is receiver. So, and then you look at our back end, our best.
And Kirk, question for you. On EA Sports right now, who is our highest ranked offensive player?
Trey. Well, I mean, are you talking portal or non-portal? Because portal is Quinshawn.
No, I'm talking. Our just player on our offense right now on EA Sports.
Quinshawn. He's 95.
Yeah, and three-star running back.
That's what I'm saying. I know. Like, I
Yeah,
mean, like he's 3-star could start literally at every school in the country. And it's like, then you have him and Trey. So Ohio State has a 95 and a 93 in the same backfield this year. So anyone with a brain is going to run a two tailback set the entire game when you play as Ohio State on the video game, because they're probably two of the top 5 running backs in the entire game, and they're in the same backfield. So, but that's, again, Quinshawn, like by some miracle of God, did not end up at Alabama or Auburn, even though he's from Montgomery. And he ended up being all SEC at Ole Miss, which makes no sense. But hey, it is what it is. Because I mean, he'd have started, at any. I mean, God, 2 years ago, if Bama would have had him and Jahmyr Gibbs in the backfield, that would have been terrifying. All right, CW2. Thank you for being the ultra, or thank you for being a Scoop Ultra member. Thank you for the 5. All right, Nevada, this is up your alley. Numerous reports that Florida State, Clemson are in talks with the Big 12. The SEC is not interested in the big. SEC is not interested, in Florida State or Clemson, and the Big, because they're not AAU accredited. What are you hearing? Because again, Nevada, I believe that you spoke about FSU becoming AAU accredited, and that was like a huge hurdle. But again, let me clean this up and make this a little more coherent. Again, this is from CW. I think it's the second CWII, CWZ, whatever. Numerous reports that Florida State and Clemson are in talks with the Big 12, aka not the SEC or the Big 10, and that the SEC and the Big 10 are not interested because they are not AAU accredited. What say you, Nevada?
Florida State's going to the Big. And I mean, it doesn't make sense for those schools to leave the ACC to go to the Big 12, because have you seen the Big 12's deal? And the Big 12's deal is not better than the ACC deal. So, like, you'd be uprooting everything to go somewhere else and not dramatically improve your financial position. I think Florida State to the Big 10 is a done deal, like done. And I think it's a matter of when, not if, and I think that when is really, really, really soon. There was a really good post on our board that says that he thought that Clemson was a viable alternative for the Big 10. I have not heard that, but it wouldn't totally shock me, because of, I mean, what you're talking about now, it used to be about buying markets, and that was in the days of cable television, when everybody was, pretty much the only way that you consumed your sports was it on your local cable provider, unless it was on a national channel. And now with streaming services where everybody basically can stream everything, it's about buying brands. And I mean, Clemson's a brand. I mean, it's not, if you're talking about going to 24 teams, is Clemson one of the top 24 brands that might be potentially available to the Big 10? I would think they are. So I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world. And I think the academic profile of Florida State's improved dramatically. I don't think Clemson's great. I think they're less of an obvious fit to me, but I think Florida State's all but a done deal. And I would bet almost anything that there's no way. I mean, Brett Yormark, first of all, the commissioner of the Big 12, is an absolute killer, guys. That guy is, we're talking about guys that could be like the commissioner of new college football, if it wasn't Sankey, or it wasn't Jim Delaney, or Tony Petiti, it could be Yormark is an absolute stud. One of the smartest guys in the entire business, known of him and know people that work with him for years and years and years, and he is unbelievable. But even he is good enough to be able to get Florida State and Clemson to the Big 12, because the Big 12 is a collection of basically basketball schools and second-tier schools that are just kind of hanging on right now. But I think he's done a good job of making them viable, but not a long-term solution for Florida State or Clemson.
I mean, I just don't know why. I mean, those are two A-list programs that would join a bunch of B and C tier groups. It, like, geographically, it just makes no sense. And again, we talk about media rights all the time because that's what drives everything. I mean, as you guys know, in college football, money is everything in the entire universe at this point. And this popped up today, and I said this to you, Nevada, but this is what it's all about. So, like the NBA, and obviously we're not an NBA podcast, we're not a basketball podcast, but They agreed to a $76 billion media rights deal over 11 years. And this is going to get announced soon. So this is what is in the crosshairs of all of these athletic directors, these conference commissioners. So why on earth you would jump to the Big 12 when, this is what, if there ever becomes this giant glob of college football greatness that becomes the NFL projection that we talk about all the time, where it's the Big Ten and the SEC merge and they make, the new college football and they come under one commissioner. Like, this is what they're shooting for right here. They want one of these big monster deals. Cause again, that basically buoys the entire college football, college basketball, whatever you want it to be. But I just think that, of all the things that I've heard, I've been shocked in my life. Clemson and Florida State pulling all of the stuff that they have to pull to leave the ACC to go to the Big 12. Like, if I was a donor to either of those schools, I don't even know what I would do. Nevada, what would you do? If you're a big time donor and you say, hey guys, we're going to do all this, we're going to hire these attorneys, we're going to get out of this deal with the ACC, and we're going to go join the Big 12, where Texas and Oklahoma just left, and anybody that has an opportunity to get out of there is leaving, but we're going to go join that. Like, it just makes no sense to me. I mean, what would you do? Because like I said, that's like the Big Ten makes a ton of sense because the Big Ten is a juggernaut and their media deals are going to become just cataclysmically huge every time that they re-up, especially when Apple's getting into it, Amazon's getting into it. Live sports is like the last bastion of people actually watching television and commercials and the whole 9 yards. And frankly, I think college football is going to go into the stratosphere, and it's never going to be better than it is this year. Like with a playoff system, it's going to be absolute like must see TV in my opinion. But yeah, I can't see it. Again, Nevada, that would be probably the most shocking thing I've ever seen in sports if they left and pulled all that to go to the Big 12, because they'd be like leaving to go to like the MAC. It's like, great, awesome, thanks. But I'll move on to the next. Do you have any question or anything on that one?
I was gonna say, why not the Pac-12? Why not go join
Oregon
State and Washington?
Oh my God!
I mean, like the Big 12 isn't going anywhere. They like you said, they're B-level type of properties at best.
Oh my God!
So I don't think it makes a lot of sense.
Well, it's so funny you say the Pac-12, and it's like they on the college football like dynasty preview thing, they're scrolling through all the conferences with all it's got realignment, and all the new teams are where they're supposed to be, and then they like scroll past the Pac-12 and they show like 2 teams. They show like Washington State and Oregon State. It's like the saddest thing I've ever seen. The two that were left at the ball by themselves is like everybody told them. No one said that the party was getting canceled, and they're just the last ones there hanging out. So it's pretty bad. Larry Daniels, thank you for an Ultra member. Thank you for the 5. I appreciate you, my friend. Please tell me someone's ready to ball at tight end. Ooh. With 3 strong receivers, strong back and tight end, defense can't afford to double anyone. Agree. Well, I don't know what we're doing, but if Jelani Thurman isn't playing a huge role this year, I would probably make a change at tight end coach pretty quick, because he's the most talented guy we've had in a long time. But from everything, he's a little bit all over the place, a little helter skelter. Now he's a big NIL guy, but that's the kid that you basically got to put in a stranglehold and try to get him to be what he's supposed to be. Because not every kid, like Carlos Hyde was a classic who, if Stan Drayton and Mickey Marotti and Urban don't all 3 put their foot up his hind end, he never becomes anything. And they all did it, put their foot up his hind end, and he turned into one of the best running backs in Ohio State history. A guy that went 2nd round, had a great NFL career. But, that's the kind of guy Jelani is. Like, Jelani needs Chip Kelly, Keenan Bailey, Mickey Marotti, Ryan Day. God, I don't even know who else. Ross Bjork, Brutus Buckeye, the basketball Diebler. Like, he needs everyone to put their foot up his butt to get him going. Because it's the worst tight end room we've had in 15 years, at least. And again, it shouldn't be like that, but it is. And it's a room where, we've got, we just don't have any NFL guys. I mean, Jelani could be a 2nd round pick type guy, but he's got to get it all together. But that's I think we're going to see a lot more three receivers. I think we're going to see a lot more two running backs bring the tight end off the field. But you need the tight end. The reason they took the Casemiro is you need a guy that can block. And I think he's a decent blocker. But you got to find a guy that can block and set the edge at tight end, and that's going to be like the A1A responsibility. Honestly, like if I ran the show, if Ryan Day said, Kirk, you get to make one change in the program, Tim Drevno, you're an hour tight ends coach. Step right up, baby. And you teach these guys how to block. Because Tim Drevno he's coached O-lines that have been in the Super Bowl, and they were monster offensive lines. So, again, it's all about developing the blocking in that room because they don't really need to do much in the offense other than block. They might catch 20 balls this year. Because when you've got JJ and you've got Emeka and you've got Quinshawn and you've got Trey and you've got, Innis and Tate. I mean, you don't need the tight end to be some Travis Kelsey, target hog like it is in Kansas City. But I think that, this is all hands on deck. And now that you can have 75 coaches coaching at once with this new role, like I'd put every coach that isn't named Brian Hartline, Justin Fry, Chip Kelly in the tight end room and say, okay, let's go develop this. Carlos Lockman, coach the running backs too. Nevada, your thoughts. Larry Daniels, thank you for being an ultra member. Thank you for the 5. Please tell me someone's ready to ball at tight end with 3 strong receivers, strong back, and a tight end. Defenses can't afford to double anyone. Agree. What are your thoughts?
I think Jelani Thurman's going to have a huge year. I really do. I think he's going to be a breakout player. I think he's a guy that I've heard has kind of turned it around, and the light's kind of gone on, and he's starting to figure it out. And we all know he's got the talent. You've seen the glimpses. Heck, he started the bowl game, which was crazy. Didn't see much of him after that, but they thought enough of him to start it. But I've heard he's doing the little things now that he wasn't doing before. They're starting to figure it out. And in this Chip Kelly offense, he could have a huge year. I expect him to have a huge year. I expect him to have a breakout year. And I'm really rooting for him to do it. And I'm rooting for, we can all be, talking about what a great position coach he has and how terrific everything is. And nothing would make me happier, but I truly believe that's going to happen. I really do. Because I think in this offense, you're going to have guys that are going to be running open. And a lot of times the guys running open is going to be that tight end. And if he's open, Will Howard's going to be able to get him the ball, and Jelani can catch it and go. And I think we're going to see a lot of that this year. I really do.
Yeah, Jelani, like, how surprised were you? I mean, 'cause obviously we were all surprised that he started the game. How surprised were you that? I mean, because Jelani in the Cotton Bowl, he was like some of my friends, like when they go out to like a strip club, like they start off strong and then they disappear and you don't see him again for the rest of the night. That was kind of Jelani's deal in the Cotton Bowl, and I was just like. So they started the kid, he played one drive, and then he watched. And it was a game where we were literally in the like we were getting trounced, and they didn't trot him back out there to try to get him going. And again, I know with Lincoln, I know with like the O-line stuff going on, it just, I don't know. Like I've never seen a guy start and then not play the rest of the game. Unless he might have just had missed assignments the whole way. But I've never seen that, especially when it's a game that doesn't mean anything. It's, and I hate saying that about an Ohio State game, but it doesn't really matter when you're doing that. Like, I mean, it's Cotton Bowl. It's not for the playoffs. It's not for the big ring. You don't get a ring for winning the Cotton Bowl. At least you shouldn't. But were you surprised that like he got like a hook and they just played everybody else at tight end, especially with Cade? Cade was out, so you don't even have Cade Stover, who's your captain and your All Big Ten tight end. So why not run him out there and give him a little burn? Your thoughts on that?
I just think the offense was that offensive performance, and I'm talking about from everybody, the coaching staff, the planning, the players, everything about that was just a mess. So I can't really, lay it because look, if Jelani Thurman was getting the hook for missed assignments or for blown plays or whatever it is, then I can name a couple other players that maybe ought to have got that day, and somehow that didn't happen. So I really don't have words for the only thing I can say is I really do believe that it took something that bad to be the impetus for Ryan Day to revamp the staff, for the NIL collective to really make a commitment to bring guys back. and for Ohio State to kind of change up everything the way that they're doing business. Because sometimes you got to hit rock bottom before you do that, and that was about as. I mean, look, defensively we held Missouri scoreless for 3 quarters, but offensively that is right up there with the worst offensive performance. I mean, that's right up there with that 06 national championship game, and I mean, it was bad. And here's the funny thing. The funny thing is, if our wide receivers had blocked, we might have won that game, because Trey probably would have run for 3 long touchdowns, and we might have pulled that thing out. And then I'm not sure that would have been the best thing for us, though. So I'm actually glad they didn't. So they're actually doing us a favor by being lazy on their outside blocks.
They don't want to get their nails dirty sometimes. You know, I mean, it's like, oh my God, the guy's allergic to contact. Buckeye BA, thank you for the 5. Appreciate you, my man. Not to mention all the O-line from Ohio next year. Yeah, next year we're gonna have a huge Ohio class, which is awesome. Big boys everywhere in Southwest Ohio. So there you go, Nevada. Big boys are all through Southwest Ohio. So they are in existence. And I thought it was Scoop World Order, SWO, but I'm sure it means Southwest Ohio. But I'm just telling you, I've never eaten at one. I don't know if I'll ever eat at one, because I've never, like, you know, if I leave my house, I'm usually at like one of about 4 different spots. If I'm getting pizza, if I'm getting chicken wings, if I'm getting whatever. Like, I don't have like a whole much variety going on in my life. Go to Town Hall if I'm feeling fancy. I want to go downtown, because Bobby George is a killer, and his restaurants are awesome. Mandrake. So I'm a simple guy. But big boy, I don't know if it's ever going to get in the rotation, but that would be, that is just my opinion. How many times have you eaten big boys? Like, you're like a fan of them. I'm like, I don't even, you don't strike me as a big boy kind of guy.
No, you gotta understand. I when we moved back, I was an Air Force brat, and we moved back to California. We moved to Redlands, California, and Redlands had a big boy. We had a big boy restaurant, and that was the place that you went on like late night, like on a Friday or Saturday night, like to eat or something. Like, say after a basketball game or after a football game or whatever it was, you went to Big Boy. And so, yeah, dude, I probably eaten at a Big Boy 500 times in my life. I mean, I've eaten at a Big Boy so much. But I like Big Boy. I like Big Boy combo, man. Fries, hot fudge cake.
I can't see anything, because after every high school football game, man, in Massillon, where there's not a ton of places to go, like we went to Applebee's, and I'd eat about 7,000 calories of half-price appetizers. It was like, I mean, just like, I could just feel like the acne forming on my face as I was eating mozzarella sticks and quesadillas and nachos. But hey, after you play a football game, man, you can eat anything, because you're just starving to death. Yeah, I've eaten in about 9 hours. All right, Cade Weston, thanks for the deuce. Thank you for being a Scoop Ultra member as well. Nevada out here cheering for Big Orange, or it says Bug Orange, but I'm thinking that means Big Orange, like Tennessee maybe. Bug Orange. I don't know what Bug Orange is. I'm guessing it means Big Orange. Nevada, are you still out here cheering for Big Orange, or a Big Orange, like you're from Florida?
Big Orange, like Anita Bryant did the orange juice or whatever it was. No, she was the spokesperson. No, man, that's probably it's got to be a Tennessee reference, right? It's got to be a smoky.
Yeah, it has to be.
Yeah, I like Tennessee. I like Tennessee. I do. I find them they're kind of a guilty pleasure of mine. I like rooting for Tennessee. People are really nice. Like the fight song. I thought Phil Fulmer turning on everybody else and blowing the whistle on the other SEC coaches was kind of great. Have you ever been to the stadium there, Kirk, at Tennessee?
No, I podcast every night. I can't leave my house. What are you talking about?
No, but you know, like
I've seen it. I'm going to see it on the video game on Monday. That'll be it. I'll take the Buckeyes to Neyland.
You can literally take a boat and like you pull a boat right up the dock, like right at the stadium, and get off the boat right there, like off the river or whatever that is, and go to the stadium. Come on, that's cool.
I think that's cool. We've got the Olentangy. Take a boat on that all you want. Take a boat. We're right on the Olentangy.
I want to see Kirk's boat ride. It'd be like I'm
gonna buy like one of those big, like I'm gonna buy one of those like big paddle boats like they have like the casinos on, and like that's how I'm gonna do it. Like
You'd have like the ferry that you pull across with you like, go ahead, Ezekiel, pull that thing there, Ezekiel.
Well, like in Josie Wales, where they've got
Josie
like
Wales,
the
yeah.
boat on the rope,
I
and he
wish I was the man of cotton.
he sings the Confederate song, then he sings the Union song right
my
afterwards.
eyes have seen the glory.
Oh my God, man!
Oh God, I can have
That's
you
one of
guys
the
pull. You be out there
that's one,
pulling the rope.
that's one
Pull
of
it
the
up there,
funniest.
Kirk.
That's one of the greatest movies of all time. It's so good.
Oh,
You know,
it is so good.
one of the
It's so
greatest
good.
movies ever made, The Outlaw. All right, Matt Patel, thank you for the 5. How big do you think the big goes? Florida State is a done deal. Do they stop with Clemson, South Carolina, or excuse me, North Carolina, Duke, Virginia Tech? Do they swallow the whole SEC? Nevada, you are our expansion guru. I just want Florida State so that my wife stops bugging me about going to a Florida State game, because she wants me to go to a Florida State game. And I'm not going unless they're playing Ohio State, so I can watch the horse run around and take a big dump on the field and throw the spear in the ground and all that. But until that happens, I ain't going until the Bucks are playing there. So, what are your thoughts, Nevada? Is Florida State a done deal, and do they stop with Clemson, Carolina? And again, I think that you think some of these are going to the SEC, just from our dealings, and we've done these shows on Carolina, on Duke, a lot of movement right now. But what are your thoughts?
I mean, I've seen a lot of modeling done, and most of my information is coming from the broadcast side, specifically from the Fox guys, from the highest levels of the Fox Sports guys. They've always shown me models with 24 teams. I've always thought that would, so whatever way you want to get to 24, does Notre Dame, North Carolina, Virginia, does Georgia Tech slip in there? Do you talk to Miami, Florida State, Clemson? I mean, some combination of those schools that get you to 24, because I think it's going to be 24 Big Ten, 24 SEC. And look, the only reason the Big 12 has a seat at the table right now is because the Big Ten and the SEC allow them to have a table. Because when they get to the point where they're like, no, look, we really appreciate your contributions. We're glad that you're around. We'll still play you in basketball and lacrosse and other things, but college football is going to become this other thing here. There's nothing the Big 12 can do. The only thing they can do is public opinion pressure, and at some point the Big 12 or the Big 10 and the SEC are going to be so big that they don't care. And when they don't care anymore and they form their own little league, then they'll be getting their own $76 billion deal, and really nobody's going to say anything that's going to matter to them. So I think the magic number is 24, and I think, it just depends on, how you show the teams in there.
Totally agree. Buck Nuts, thank you for the 10. Thanks for being an ultra member as well. Oh, God. I'm going to have to take this one, Nevada. Tell me, did we miss on Jackson Carman? I can show you that we didn't miss on Jackson Carman. I know that Nevada and I, who, again, there aren't two humans on this earth that care less about recruiting than Nevada and I. And again, we like getting good players. That's awesome. It's great. But when we miss on a kid, the way some people are ready to dive off a cliff, or, some people inside the Woody Hayes like assassinate position coaches via the media as their conduits, I sit there and I'm just like, let's just see how it all plays out. Because sometimes like people are like, oh my God, how are we ever going to survive? We didn't get Jackson Carman. He's from Ohio. He didn't want to be a Buckeye. He wanted to go somewhere else. He wanted to be contrarian. He's kind of a weird kid. He's been a complete bust. Every Bengals fan in the universe hates him right now. So, when we didn't get Jackson Carman, and this is straight off the old 247 rankings from the 2018 top tackle classes. Oh God, what did we do? Where's Jackson Carman? Oh, he's down there at number 4, right? Number 4 offensive tackle in the class. Who do we get? Oh, we got Nick Petit-Frere, the number 1 tackle in the class. Go look up his NFL career. He's going to start for the Titans. He'll have a huge career. Way better player than Jackson Carman. Better athlete. A million times smarter. And Jackson Carman's last game of his career was him getting absolutely annihilated by Ohio State, getting ran off the field by Justin Fields and the boys down in the Sugar Bowl. So, like, did we miss Jackson Carman? No, because we got Nick Petit-Frere, who's better. But, there's this myth that, he's an Ohio kid, and how could he ever go elsewhere? And it's like, well, who cares? I don't care. We took a kid from Tampa, and we brought him up here because, Urban Meyer and Stud and those guys did a great job recruiting this kid. Again, there's this misnomer, which, again, Nick Petit-Frere has been in my house, and I talked to him, and I asked him, did you come here because of Greg Schiano? And, because Greg Schiano was the coach of the Buccaneers. Greg Schiano was a guy that his sons, I think, went to the same high school as Nick Petit-Frere. But, like, you understand, like, Nick Petit-Frere is like, he's like Copernicus. He's one of the smartest people I've ever been around. Easily one of the smartest Ohio State players of all time. Just a rare, really, 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 really sharp kid. And I asked him, I was like, did you come here because of Greg Schiano? Because that's the big hot rumor. It's like, oh God, the only, it wasn't Greg Studwara, it wasn't Urban Meyer. It was the defensive coordinator. It was the guy that pulled Nick Petit-Frere to Ohio State. And I asked Nick, literally sitting in my dining room, and he said, no, why would I ever come to a school because of a defensive coordinator? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. I was like, okay, that's perfect. So, I mean, that's what I thought. I mean, again, I loved Mark D'Antonio. Mark, when I was getting recruited, Mark D'Antonio was the defensive coordinator at Ohio State, and I loved him. I thought he was awesome. But, like, I'm not coming to play for Mark D'Antonio. I was coming to play for Jim Bowman. He was the O-line coach. I mean, your position coach is 90% of the relationship. The coordinator's probably like 8%, and then the head coach is like 2%. But, and maybe, okay, let's go 80, 15, 5. But, you're playing for the position coach. Because, like, even if I love Jim Tressel and I love whoever, if I had a coordinator, Jim Bowman was the O-line coach and the coordinator, like, I have to like my position coach. Even when I was in the National Football League, like, my favorite places I was at are the places where I really like the position coach. Because those are the guys that you're counting on to teach you, guide you, teach you the ways, go to war for you, especially like when it's final cuts time. Like, I mean, I had Harry Heastan went to war for me with the Bears. He loved me. It was great. George Yarno, God rest his soul, was awesome in Detroit. Chris Forrester, who's still the line coach of the 49ers, he was awesome. So like that's the real relationship. So did we miss getting Jackson Carman? We got a better, literally a better player than him. I mean, you're not going to get 4 5-star tackles in a class. Like maybe on the video game you might, or in some utopia that some of these like zealots live in. But in reality, like if you get 1 5-star tackle, like you're cooking. And again, let's go check the film. Stud, when he was pulling 5-star tackles, like it was going south. Like in the entire country in 2018, there were 2 5-star tackles in the entire country. This is the national ratings for 2018, entire country. And there's 2 of them, and we got 1 of them. And none of them were named Jackson Carman, who was a 4-star. So again, did we miss on him? No, because we get Nick Petit-Frere, who's better. Nick Petit is locked in ink to start at right tackle for the Tennessee Titans this year. Jackson Carman's probably not going to make the Bengals. So one of these things are not like the other. Nevada, do you have anything to add?
No, just look, there's always some of those kids that just don't want to go to Ohio State. They want to be contrarian. And when that happens, it's hard to be mad at Ohio State about that. It's hard to be mad at who's recruiting them. But, Stud just, had that thing where there were some people that were just bound and determined to criticize him no matter what he did. And, but Jackson Carman, that would have been one of those ones where I'd have been like, guys, this is probably a blessing in disguise. Oh no, Nevada, it's the end of days. And oh no, Stud blew it and he slept he should have called them. And it's like, guys, there's nothing he could do. But it all worked out the way it's supposed to. But I've got a trivia question for you, not related to any of that. So I want you to look at the camera. So you're not looking at the Google machine or anything like that. What is the name of Florida State's horse? Don't look at the computer.
Renegade.
Man, you did know that. That's good. I'm impressed.
My wife is a Seminole. I mean, she is a criminal. She went to free shoes.
What kind of horse is Renegade?
One that's hung. I don't know.
An Appaloosa. See, oh man, Kirk,
I
Kirk,
don't care
Kirk,
about
Kirk, Kirk.
Good God.
Renegade.
I got a podcast today. I don't care about no horses. What are we talking about? Brennan Shaley, what's up, brother? Thank you for the 10. I hope you're having a great night. Recently moved to Columbus for work. When is the next Scoop meetup party at B-Dubs or Twin Peaks? I want to attend. This August, I got to get the date firmed up. They're opening up a brand new one in Grove City. Our Buffalo Wild Wings folks are going to get us the date they wanted to do it. So I will very much keep you in the loop. I mean, it's obviously within the next 2 months. So it's going to be fantastic, man. I hope that work is going great. If you have any tips or anything, you can shoot me an email, barton.145@gmail. If you have any questions about the city, I hope that your new job is treating you great. I love Columbus. It's a great city. A lot of stuff to do, and there's a great airport. That's all I need in my life. And good Wi-Fi. I wish I had fiber optic cable for Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
that's the only thing I wish that we had. Is like, I was like, come on, AT&T, lay that fiber so we can go to the moon. But other than that, we're in really good shot. Really good shape. But I appreciate you, Brennan. Like, send me an email if you have any questions. And I hope you're acclimating to the city well. Matt Patel, thank you for the 5. Appreciate you, my friend. Speaking of the media rights deals, should the Big Ten send a thank you to Mark Shapiro for trying to outflex Jim Delaney? Ooh. Nevada, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, for people that aren't familiar with the story, Mark was at ESPN and trying to kind of power bomb Delaney. Delaney's like,
that's an image.
The heck with you. We'll go form our own channels. We'll do our own network, and really, it's kind of the genesis for everything that's kind of happened past that is, that was really kind of the Waterloo for ESPN. That ESPN had a chance to go one of two ways, and they kind of went down the drain. And the fun thing is, like, I've known Mark for years through a fellow person that I used to work with, who was very close with him. So smart guy, but he miscalculated on that one big time. And Delaney was such a great commissioner for the Big Ten, and really kind of a giant. And that's why we needed that kind of leadership during COVID and during that stuff. And we had that bozo Kevin Warren. But thank goodness those days are over, and we've got Tony Petitti, who I really think is going to go down as one of the great commissioners. And I don't think he'll be as good as Delaney, but I think few people could be. But yeah, that was a great sort of changed the whole trajectory of college football, that one meeting. And I'm sure ESPN regrets it, but sucks for them, good for us.
Yeah, they're atrocious. I mean, ESPN is in the tank right now, man. It's like they've cut off about every ounce of talent they have in that organization. If they didn't have live sports, I don't think they'd have a single viewer anymore. So bad. ZZM, what's up, brother? Hope you're doing well. Thanks for being an Ultra member. Thank you for the 5. Seeing how great our roster is this year, what are the top 3 things we must improve at camp to hoist the trophy at the end of the season? That is a fantastic question. ZZM, you always bring the heat, so I appreciate that. Nevada OH.
Do
you want to go first, or do you want me to go first? Because I know I kind of want... I don't want to say the same things as you, but I also don't want to steal all your stuff. Do you want me to go, or do you want to go first?
No, I'll go first. I'll say the three things that we need to improve.
Yep.
And my 3 will probably be completely different than your 3. I think we've got to develop a more consistent pass rush out of whatever way we generate it, whether it be by unleashing the defensive ends, whether it be by bringing more real pressure instead of simulated pressure, by having more creative blitz packages, bringing Sonny Styles, bringing CJ Hicks, are both excellent blitzers, bringing Caleb Downs. We got to bring more pressure defensively. That's number 1. Number 2, we have to have more consistent output out of the offensive line in the running game. which I think is a direct, correlation to running the quarterback, uh, using constraint, and being less predictable offensively, especially in short yardage in the red zone. Because you know, not being able to consistently convert in those situations is exceedingly frustrating. I think they've got the formula for how to do it. I think you've got two great running backs and a terrific slim down Will Howard at quarterback, who's a big tough guy and can get those tough yards when you need him to. But I think you're going to need to make sure that happens, and then you just need to have something that probably is not on your list, but it's definitely on mine, is adequate special teams. We need to be good enough punting, good enough on field goals. It's up because that stuff never matters until it matters. Last year we've talked at nauseum about the Michigan game, about Kyle McCord, interception, Marvin Harrison rounding off that route, not fighting for that ball against Will Johnson, the Denzel Burke maybe interception, maybe not, near the goal line, the last Donnie Jackson foot stepped on, sacked. But we don't talk about the missed field goal. And they made their field goals and we missed ours. And, we lost by 6 points. That game's, if we make that field goal, we're down 3 in that last game. We're not throwing to the end zone. Maybe we're throwing a little swing, you're throwing a screen pass or you're running a draw or whatever you're doing like that. And so things completely change on special teams. So it's something that doesn't matter until it matters. And we need it to matter this year. We need to be good, good to great in that area. And so those are my 3 things.
Yeah, those are spot on. I mean, I definitely was going to do pass rush. I was definitely going to do running game. And so I'll start. I think that number one, the quarterback running game has got to be the focal point of the offense. Like, we have to run the quarterback. We have to make it hard to defend. We're too easy to defend in the running game. Like, that's our biggest problem. 2, our offensive line has to play much more physical. We're terrible at combination blocks. We don't finish guys. We don't, it's just not in our makeup or mentality right now. Our guys are up in 2-point stances when they should be down in 3-point stances sometimes in the running game. Again, watch Michigan. Like, when Michigan really needs to go run the ball, like, their guys are down in 3-point stances. Like DeJuan Jones, who weighs 400, he's 350, 380, whatever he weighs, 6'8". I don't think he was in a 3-point stance his entire college career at Ohio State, or maybe he was as a freshman. But his last year, he was in a 2-point at times where I'm like, dude, like, get in a 3-point, come off the ball, and go kill somebody. And it's like, as soon as he gets to the Cleveland Browns, and they have Bill Callahan, who's one of the top 5 or 6 offensive line coaches who's ever lived, like, he's down in a 3-point. And I'm just telling you, in terms of generating force and moving guys, like, a 3-point stance is, again, it's like, it'd be like if Usain Bolt was at the Olympics, like, when he's running the 100 meters to set the world record, like, is he up in a 2-point stance, or is he down in the blocks in what's a lot closer to 3 points where he can generate force? And again, go watch Michigan. Those guys get down in 3 points and they mash people. And that's what we need to get back to doing up front, because there's going to be a game. It's going to be a little windy. It's going to be a little cold, a little rainy. And all of a sudden, our receivers will be dropping balls, and it'll be a little cold out, and we're going to be wishing that we were playing in a dome. And you're going to have to go run the football to win the game. Or you go up to Oregon, where it's going to be impossibly loud and the stadium will be basically on fire because the big bad Bucks are coming to town. You got to run the ball. You got to calm it's a great way to calm everybody down, namely your quarterback. It helps protect your defense when you can run the ball. Because again, it's just math. If you can control the clock and hold on to the ball and chew the clock up the way Michigan's done the last 3 years, then all of a sudden your defense doesn't have to defend 80 plays. If they only have to defend 60, they're going to give up less yards. They're going to give less points. And frankly, they're going to be more rested in the fourth quarter. So we got to get back to being violent up front, which we're not. And 3 for me is wide receiver blocking, which is as bad as I've ever seen at Ohio State. And again, I love Ohio State. I think Brian Hartline. And the crazy thing is, like, Brian Hartline was a phenomenal blocker when he was here, but that has slipped to an abysmal level where it kills guys like Trey. Trey's got afterburners. He's one of the fastest running backs in the country, Quinshawn. And you need those guys to go dig out a safety. They need to go block block the safeties. They don't need to block the corners. I mean, our guys can make the corners. I always want to make the corners tackle because the safeties can tackle. The corners can't tackle at any level of football. So make them go make the tackle. But I'm telling you, if you want to get back to explosive runs, and again, a guy that actually said this really well, who's kind of a goofy looking dude, but he's an offensive genius, is Mike McDaniel from the Dolphins. He talked about how he made it a big deal for those guys. Like, hey, if we want to have explosive runs, and Kyle Shanahan's the same way with the 49ers, he makes those guys block. Ayuk and Deebo Samuel, they'll go out and kill dudes. And then all of a sudden, magically, Christian McCaffrey leads the NFL in rushing. And all of a sudden, Devon A-Chain and Raheem Mostert, those guys both ran for 1,000 yards, I think. And they had a game where they scored like 77 points and ran for 500 yards or whatever it was against Denver, where their receivers were going and getting after the DBs. Because again, you can only get so many yards if you don't block the safeties. And we never block the safeties. So you can have the most perfectly well-executed blocking by the offensive line, and everything can be letter perfect up front. But if you don't block a safety or block any of the DBs, then there's always going to be a guy or two in the hole, and you're going to get 6 yards instead of 65 yards. So that's my biggest pet peeve, because it's just laziness, and I think it's selfish. And that's kind of permeated because, guys just want to get theirs, and they don't want to get their nails dirty, and they don't want to go, put something on someone where, the guys I play, I mean, Gonzo used to kill guys. Santonio Holmes go watch that Notre Dame reverse to Ted Ginn. Santonio Holmes would have been thrown in prison because he hit that guy so hard. And it was like it was one of my favorite plays I've ever seen, because Santonio was going to leave after that game and be a first-round pick. And that was a meaningless, quote-unquote, game, non-national championship. And Santonio killed their Sam linebacker. Like, I mean, decleated him, put him in hospice. He hit him so hard. So those are my three things. Great question, ZZM. As always, I appreciate you, my friend. Alexander Presley, thank you for the 5. Nevada, this is another little look. I kind of like this. The Big Ten needs to thin out their teams and get rid of Northwestern, Maryland, and Rutgers. Ooh, that's interesting. But, the whole New York market thing is interesting, and Northwestern is the Chicago market. What are your thoughts on thinning out? I mean, in my dream, if Kirk became the commissioner of the Big Ten, I'd absolutely have relegation, where like the bottom teams have to go play in the MAC or some, play in the Big 12 or whatever. Like, that would be incredible. I don't think that'll ever happen, because I don't think that the institutions would ever go for that. But what are your thoughts about it? The Big Ten needs to thin out their teams and get rid of Northwestern, Maryland, and Rutgers.
Yeah, I mean, look, if we're talking about fantasies, man, we can do a lot better. If I'm gonna use my fantasy powers, it's not gonna be to remove Northwestern from the Big Ten. I'm gonna go for a bigger game than that. But yeah, it's a cute idea. It's never ever gonna happen. So those teams, we're contractually bound to them. They're contractually bound to us, and there's no path out of that. I mean, the only path out of that would be if one of those schools dropped football, and that isn't going to happen anytime soon. I think the last time that's happened, the Big Ten member was the University of Chicago, and so I think that they're technically still a member, but like a non-football member or whatever it is. But no, good idea, cute idea, never ever going to happen.
Totally agree. Griffin, thank you for being an Ultra member. Thank you for the 5. Hope you're doing good, my friend. Do high-level college football programs still use physical copies of playbooks? Any animated playbooks for iPads and laptop? What was your playbook study process? I think that there might still be a team or two that use the physical copies, but it's just so antiquated, because every freshman that comes to Ohio State on the football team gets a brand new iPad. Everyone. And the thing about an iPad is, when you put the playbook on the iPad, is you can remotely delete it if you lose the iPad. If you have a paper playbook and someone jacks it, then it's gone forever. You can't ever get it back. It can go to Kinko's or wherever and Xerox the whole thing, whatever. It's not really that big of a deal. So I think that they've all gone to iPads, because it's just like, why wouldn't you? It's just so much easier to have it on a tablet because you can thumb through it, and you can add film cut ups of the plays, and it's just way more interactive. Any animated playbooks? Yeah, there's actually great software for playbook animation on iPads. When I was doing it, over 10 years ago, like we had Visio and we drew everything, and we were literally, I think, the first crew that put it on iPads. Like we said, let's put it on the iPad. But back then we did have everyone had the paper playbooks. It was like the running joke that the only reason we printed the paper playbooks was that then it can't get out in the media somehow that, oh, Ohio State doesn't even give their players playbooks, because the first time you lose a game or we don't convert on third down, they'll say, well, if you guys would have printed out playbooks, and maybe you guys would know your plays or whatever. But I think that just from a security standpoint, I think the iPad and the laptop is much better, just because you can remotely wipe anything that can touch the internet. And again, a lot of you guys that work for organizations, like if you've got your work email on your phone, or you've got whatever going on, like the second, if you leave a job or the job leaves you, like instantly they can delete everything off of your phone, your iPad, your, anything that you can remotely access. So for me, the playbook study process, I mean, I had the craziest year ever. My rookie year in the league, I was on 5 teams. So I was learning playbooks basically every 4 weeks, which was literal hell on earth. But you just try to get the most high level, most frequent stuff as best you can. Like if I was a young offensive lineman, I would have just know the pass protections for sure. Probably even more than the run game, because if you screw up a pass protection, you blow an assignment, quarterback gets killed. The whole team can be on you. As opposed to the running game is pretty similar. A lot of gaps. The hardest part is just learning the verbiage, especially if you come from a big school, or like when I was flipping NFL teams. Like a lot of the words are the same, but they have different meanings, and that never stops getting confusing. Like when a word like tag has 4 different meanings across 4 different playbooks, like when you're out there in the heat of the moment, sometimes that can get a little fuzzy. But it's just like anything else. It's just repetition. And I studied for MBA finance exams, and it's just reading it over and over again, taking practice tests. I think the best thing when I would install it with kids and I'd teach kids is I'd have them draw it up on the whiteboard and install it to me. Like, you teach me the play, and then you can kind of poke holes in their deficiencies. So I always believed in having the kids present. So I'd have the kids, like, I would just randomly call on a kid, and he'd go up to the front of the meeting room and, Norwell, install 13 book. And he'd get up there with the marker, and he would say everything I would say, like, because that's how you had to do it. Because I would say everything that Urban wanted us to say. And then, by doing that, it puts a little pressure on them, but it also makes them the expert, which is what you want all of your really good players. It makes Corey Linsley the expert, Jacoby Bourne, whoever. So it's that was always my deal. Nevada, I don't think you have anything to add to that, because I don't know if you have had a playbook on an iPad, but
well, just a little known fact. People don't know this, but Kirk was the first person that used hand puppets when you were when you were instructing the guys about this.
Salt shakers, hand puppets. We did everything.
You're like, it's like Team America World Police or whatever it is. You have your little puppets kind of moving around and doing stuff like that, doing the blocking and stuff.
It's like Game of Thrones in that one episode where the faceless man's chasing the girl, and they've got like the little puppet show going on. Yeah, that one girl gets her head ripped off.
I can see Kirk pulling out his little puppets. Okay, you're going to show the puppet how to block. You're the puppet defensive lineman. Block him.
No, we used everything. I mean, I used a checkerboard. I mean, because you got to remember, like when you're teaching these kids, I mean, you got kids that got, I mean, they've got all kinds of learning deficiencies. I'll leave it that they're ADHD. Some aren't literate. So, I mean, whatever the deal is, like the cool thing about like when you're a football coach and like when you're working for a guy like Urban, he doesn't care what the deal is. The kid still has to get it, no matter how deficient he is. So you figure out every trick known to God in advance to get kids to figure out that stuff. And it's a lot of long hours, but again, it makes kids, it makes kids into a strong unit, which is what we did. Buck Nuts, thanks for the 5. Appreciate you for that. And thanks for being an Ultra member as well. I've seen no less than 5 articles hinting the Texas A&M to the Big Ten. Any heat to that smoke? I have not seen anything on that, but I mean, I know that I'm sure that they weren't thrilled when Texas jumped into the SEC after, A&M jumped in the SEC, and then so, oh, by the way, we're gonna bring in your arch nemesis as well, and they're gonna take all of your thunder now, because they are the belle of the ball in the state of Texas. Nevada, have you heard anything about Texas A&M to the Big Ten?
Yeah, I mean, look, they've been discussed. I mean, I don't know if the discussions are serious, but I mean, it's been a discussion point for all the reasons you said. I mean, they thought that they would have kind of the exclusive domain over the state of Texas when they came to the SEC. Obviously, now that UT's in, that ain't happening. So for them to be the sole member of the Big Ten in Texas would be attractive to them. Do I think that there's real traction on that? No, I think it's a interesting internet discussion point, but it's not completely false. I mean, that has been discussed. That is a name that's been on the board, but I'm not sure if there's been a real degree of seriousness about that recently. But I'll continue to monitor that.
Yeah, that would be a shocker. I mean, they just jumped to the SEC, what, like 12 or 15 years? I mean, that was like when Johnny Football just moved over. I mean, that'd be wild, but I would take them in a heartbeat. That'd be awesome. D Sunny, this is a great question. I've never talked to Nevada about this. Thanks for the 5. Appreciate you, brother. Hope you're doing good. Nevada, what era did you enjoy the most as a Packers fan? The Brett Favre era or the Aaron Rodgers era? That's a good question. D Sunny always brings it.
I mean, yeah, I loved them both, but I'm a big Aaron Rodgers fanboy just because, I thought that Aaron Rodgers did more with less than anybody that I've ever seen. And, I love the way that he approached the game. I think he's the best pure thrower maybe in the history of the NFL. And I'm not saying he's a better quarterback than Tom Brady or more, Tom Brady's Super Bowl success speaks for its success. But, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is just just a joy to watch. And when he was operating at a high level there with the Packers, man, it was something to see. So I'd probably say the Aaron Rodgers era, but the Favre era was a lot of fun. And the Jordan Love era looks like it's going to be a lot of fun as well. So, we've been blessed to go back to back to back, potentially really good quarterbacks, and not a lot of, the Browns haven't had that luxury. They've had 29 starting quarterbacks that time. And so, yeah, I think Packer fans have been very, very fortunate.
Has there ever been an organization that has done less for a quarterback than the Packers did with Aaron Rodgers?
No. It was almost like it was purposeful. I mean, it was almost like they were just like avoid, never drafting a skill player in the first round during his time. And I mean, they didn't do much for him. But hey, I give the Packers all the credit in the world though, because I think they managed this transition from just like they did from Favre to Rodgers. They managed to thread the needle on Rodgers to Love, and I give them credit. And I didn't know if they could do it, but they did it. And I'll be the first one to blast them when they do something wrong, but they did that right, and they deserve a lot of credit for that. That was not easy.
I love that. Well, Nevada, we think we've reached the end. Appreciate all you guys tonight. Any final thoughts?
No, just look, NIL's crazy right now, but just let the water all kind of settle out there. Ohio State's navigating the seas quite nicely right now. Don't get too despaired by what's happening, because I think this stuff does normalize at some point. For all you guys listen to our podcast, thank you guys so much for doing it. You can help us out by subscribing to the channel. You can help us out by giving us a like. And, again, that stuff really helps us and really helps the channel out. And we really appreciate it. So we'll see you tomorrow night.
We, of course, got one at the buzzer from Pooh Beard, who's the man. Pooh Beard 12, thank you for being ultra. Thank you for the 5. I think exorbitant spending on high school seniors creates the potential for pocket watching from active players and divides in the locker room. Thoughts, Nevada OH? Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's the biggest thing that you deal with. I mean, some of these kids, they show up and they suck. I mean, I've heard about kids that have showed up and they're freshmen and they get, a nice junk and they got a nice car and they got whatever. And then they get to they can't get through one of Mickey Marotti's workouts, and they get on the field and they suck. So yeah, of course. I mean, because again, you got to remember there's still guys on Ohio State's roster that were from the pre-NIL era, like from high school to senior. So like, I mean, there's some guys that are they're a few years down the road where they've got nothing in NIL. Like, I mean, Chip Trayanum didn't get a dime at Ohio State, and he got a huge chunk of money from Kentucky. So yeah, I mean, I think that it's just the natural thing. That's the thing I was worried about with NIL in college is that when you're in the National Football League, like I was in the league for 3 years, it's like even if you're on practice squad, you're making like $180,000, which is incredible money for a 23-year-old kid without a care in the world who works 2 days a week. Like that's the greatest gig in the world. So that's your floor. Now there might be guys in that locker room that are making 30 million, but you're making 180. You ain't starving. You're working 4 months a year, or 5 months a year, whatever it is. Like you're fine. You'll survive. But at Ohio State, there's guys that are making good money and they've got big cars and big Louis Vuitton sunglasses and whatever. And then there's guys that don't have anything. They're broke. They have nothing. So that's the thing I worry about. Now, how do you manage that and what's the process? But I don't know. That's a Ryan Day problem, but it causes a divide in the locker room. And that's something we have to just manage the culture. And really, it'd just be the ultimate motivation for me to just play better, beat guys out. Like if some guy gets some crazy bonus, and then and it was me versus him, like I was like, I'm gonna beat the tar out of him in every possible drill, because the ultimate revenge is to start over him and get drafted ahead of him. So it's my opinion. Nevada, your thoughts? I think that exorbitant spending on, again, thank you, Pooh Beard, for being the man, and thank you for being for the five. The exorbitant spending on high school seniors creates the potential for pocket watching from active players, divides in the locker room. Your thoughts, Nevada?
Yeah, I mean, locker room dynamics are underrated, man. People talk about team chemistry and just those intangibles that bring teams together on any sport. And I think it's everything. I think it's everything in sports. I think it's everything in business. I think having that kind of dynamic where you're aligned with your partners and with your people and your teammates, and you guys understand, and you don't have those types of things dividing the locker room. I think it's a huge thing, and I think it's literally what tore Texas A&M apart. And I think ultimately that's what's going to create problems for Oregon. And so I think it's spot on, and I think it's a huge potential problem.
Totally agree. Mike Gilkison, appreciate you, man. Thank you for the five. Love the show. Appreciate that as always. We love doing it. It's a blast each and every night. One on offense and passing. Why don't teams rotate the fastest players and always have one run deep? Seems it would open the up the D. Nevada OH. Well, I think this depends on who it is, and I think eventually teams are gonna not honor it if you're not gonna chuck it, And plus, you have to have a guy that can do it. And I mean, we thought for 3 years that Jaden Ballard could be that guy. He hasn't been that guy. I mean, if you have a couple guys that can float, like Jameson Williams was great at it, Olave was great at it. I think it would make a ton of sense. I think Lorenzo Salas Jr., if he played receiver, would be great at it. But I think eventually it's kind of like the boy who cried wolf, and they're not going to honor, just running a 9 route every time. I think and a lot of times, in the passing concepts, they work in concert to get certain guys open. Like when 5 guys go out on a route, there's really, one guy, maybe 2 guys that could potentially get the ball. The other guys are all trying to occupy a safety, occupy a corner, occupy someone in a zone, running a zone beater for 2-man, cover 2, cover 3, cover 4, whatever. But it's an interesting thought because again, I would just have Jaden Ballard do that. So Jaden go run a 9 route and try to occupy the safety and do whatever. But he hasn't done anything yet. So Nevada, your thoughts again, Mike Gilkson. Appreciate you, man. Thank you for saying that you love the show. One on offense and passing. Why don't teams rotate the fastest players and always have one run deep? What are your thoughts, Nevada?
Well, I think in most modern passing concepts, when you're doing that, you're having somebody that's threatening the D. It's just a question of whether it's left, right, or center. But you're trying to stress all 3 levels on with your passing tree, and I think that happens a lot. I think some teams are better at it than others. Some teams look to those shots and make it, but I think most of the time you're sending somebody into those deeper zones for all the reasons you said. If nothing else, just to drag a safety out of the coverage to try to get to the guy that you want to. So I think you do see a lot of that, probably more so than you notice on television, because when you see those underneath throws, you don't see those guys threatening the deep zone, but a lot of times they're there.
Yep. Totally agree. All right, Nevada, you kind of gave your wrap. Any final thoughts? And we can get out of here.
No, we'll see you guys tomorrow night, and thank you guys so much for being here. We don't ever think that we don't appreciate you being here, because we truly do. Thanks for making the show great, and we'll see you tomorrow night.
Appreciate you guys as always. Good long one tonight. Appreciate it. Good 90-minute show. You guys are killing it tonight. Great questions, great correspondence. Again, love answering your questions. So thank you for all that you guys add to the show. It makes it really special, and it's always a blast to kind of hear what you guys want to know about. Again, if you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, also click that little alert bell. Subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts. Leave us a 5-star review. We're making a huge push there. It's been fantastic. So we thank you guys so much for all that you guys do. It's a big deal for us to keep pushing this content. And the ratings are incredible. Smashing every record, smashing all competition. It's been awesome. And it's all thanks to you. So I hope that you guys are having a great summer. Guys, we're like 50 days out from college football. It's absolutely crazy. The college football video game comes out on Monday. It's going to be a great ride into the college football season. That being said, thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. We will talk to you guys tomorrow at 7 o'clock. I hope you guys have a great night. Go Bucks.